Can you turn a $300 investment into a $3.1 billion empire? This family started with a $300 investment and built a $3.1 billion TV empire. Then they stole it all, including $6,000 for Christmas trees. Here's how they almost got away with it. They stole $3.1 billion. That's enough to buy 10,000 luxury homes or pay the salaries of 62,000 American workers for a year. But how did the Rigas family pull off the biggest cable TV heist in history, right under the noses of Wall Street and federal regulators? How did a man who started a small-town cable company with $300 transform the billion-dollar empire into his own personal piggy bank? Sit tight, because I'm about to show you how an 80-year-old man became America's most notorious corporate criminal. The Rigas family didn't just steal. They lived like royalty while their company crumbled under billions of hidden debt. But here's where things get really interesting. What they did with the money will shock even the most cynical among you. In the small town of Coudersport, Pennsylvania, the name Adelphia was synonymous with success. Founded by John Rigas in 1952, the company grew to become the fifth largest cable provider in the United States. From humble beginnings, Adelphia had risen to dizzying heights, and the Rigas family, headed by John, basked in the glow of prosperity. But in the shadows of their empire, a storm was brewing, a storm that would tear their family apart and bring down a once thriving company. Wait until you hear what they spent $6,000 on. It wasn't just any Christmas trees. The Rigas empire wasn't built overnight. Born in Wellsville, New York in 1924, John Rigas served his country in World War II before earning an engineering degree. His first taste of media ownership, a small cinema in Pennsylvania. But his true legacy began in 1952 when he purchased a local cable television station for just $300. From these humble beginnings, a telecommunications giant would rise and eventually fall. I know what you're thinking right now. How could someone who worked so hard to build something throw it all away? The answer might surprise you. But beneath the gleaming facade of success, a family's insatiable appetite for more would trigger one of the most shocking falls from grace in corporate history. Hit the like button if you've ever wondered how billionaires get away with fraud for so long. The answer is coming up. John Rigas was a man driven by ambition. He had built Adelphia from the ground up, weaving a tapestry of success and wealth. His vision was clear. Adelphia would be the king of cable television. But as the company expanded, so did the Rigas family's desires. In a minute, I'll reveal the one mistake that exposed their entire scheme and brought down an empire worth billions. Behind closed doors, the Rigas family had engineered the perfect corporate structure for their scheme. While owning only 20% of the company, they controlled a staggering 60% of voting rights. This lopsided arrangement meant virtually no oversight from other shareholders. A corporate governance nightmare that was practically an invitation for abuse. This is what corporate fraud looks like. 20% ownership, 60% control, 100% deception. But what the Rigas family didn't know was that their pursuit of the American dream was about to become America's nightmare. Their next moves would shock even the most hardened Wall Street veterans. Quick one, please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. It'll encourage us to make more videos. The most shocking part of this story isn't even the money. It's what happened next when investigators started looking at the books. In 2002, a financial crisis erupted at Adelphia, but the truth was far worse than anyone imagined. Behind closed doors, John Rigas and his sons had been hiding over $2.3 billion in debt, inflating the company's financial statements to deceive investors and the public. But it wasn't just about the money. They had developed elaborate schemes to funnel company funds into their personal coffers, using Adelphia as their own private piggy bank. The mechanics of the fraud were ingenious yet devastating, like spending company money on a $13 million private golf course. The mechanics of the fraud were ingenious yet devastating. At the center was Adelphia's cash management system, CMS, a complex web that commingled funds across multiple companies. By 2002, This house of cards had accumulated $6.8 billion in bank credit debt, $6.9 billion in senior note debt, and $1.6 billion in convertible preferred stock. The family even orchestrated 4 separate public offerings that raised $2.8 billion, money that would never benefit legitimate shareholders. What the Rigas family did with customer numbers was so brazen that even Enron executives would blush. They counted 15,000 Brazilian customers who weren't even theirs. The deception knew no bounds. The Rigases created completely fake transactions, backed by fictitious documents to give the false appearance they were repaying debts. They used misleading footnotes in financial statements to hide massive liabilities. They even counted 15,000 customers in Brazil who weren't actually Adelphia subscribers. The audacity was breathtaking. And then they took it even further. The family's extravagant spending became legendary. John's greed knew no bounds. He spent $6,000 of company funds to send 2 Christmas trees to his daughter in New York. But that was just the beginning. The opulence was staggering, but it was all built on a foundation of lies. In just a moment, I'll show you the exact document that exposed their $2.3 billion lie and sent Wall Street into a panic. As the Rigas family continued their spending spree, the clock was ticking. Someone was about to pull the thread that would unravel their entire empire. Quick one, please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. It'll encourage us to make more videos. Time was up for the Rigas family. The scandal broke in 2002, shaking Wall Street to its core. As the lies began to unravel, so too did the lives of the Rigas family. John and Timothy Rigas were arrested and charged with conspiracy, bank fraud, and securities fraud. Their once invincible empire had crumbled under the weight of their deceit. The SEC's reaction to what they found was unprecedented, and you'll see why in 30 seconds when we reveal the full extent of their crimes. When regulators finally closed in, the SEC didn't hold back. They charged the family with violating anti-fraud laws, manipulating periodic reporting, keeping false records, and maintaining practically non-existent internal controls. All compensation received during the fraud period, civil penalties against everyone involved, permanent bans from the securities industry, and lifetime bars from serving as officers or directors of public companies. The message was clear. This level of corporate betrayal would not be tolerated. John, now 80 years old, was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Timothy, his eldest son, faced an even harsher fate, 20 years behind bars. The sentences handed down were among the harshest in corporate fraud history since the fall of Enron in 2001. Experts estimated the family had embezzled at least $1 billion from the company they built. Their lavish lifestyle had come at a tremendous cost. But the fallout didn't stop there. In a cruel twist of fate, the Rigas family's downfall was set into motion by their own greed. Yet not everyone was held accountable. The SEC was closing in, but the Rigas family made one decision that shocked everyone, and it wasn't to run. The fall of the Rigas empire was just beginning. As prison gates loomed, a family that once had everything would learn the true cost of betrayal. The Rigas family's fall from grace was swift and brutal. In the wake of the scandal, Adelphia filed for bankruptcy. The company, once a leader in the cable industry, was now nothing more than a shell of its former self. Its headquarters, once a symbol of success, was moved to Greenwood Village, Colorado. Employees were laid off, and the company's workforce dwindled to just 275 people. Unlike other notorious fraudsters at Enron and WorldCom, the Rigas family didn't engage in insider selling as their empire crumbled. Perhaps they truly believed they could right the ship before anyone noticed. A tragic delusion that would cost them everything. The Rigas family was forced to pay a $1.5 billion settlement, but the damage had been done. Their name would forever be associated with one of the most infamous corporate scandals in American history. Adelphia, the company that had once rivaled the giants of the cable industry, faded into obscurity. They built an empire on $300 and lost it over Christmas trees. If that's not a lesson in priorities, I don't know what is. But the most devastating price of their greed wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in destroyed lives and shattered trust. Comment below if you think their sentences were too harsh or not harsh enough. Should white-collar criminals face the same penalties as other thieves? As the Rigas family faced prison sentences and financial ruin, the world watched in disbelief. How had a family once so revered fallen so far? The story of Adelphia exposes the dangers of unchecked greed and the consequences of deception. It is a tale of a family that reached for the stars and, in the end, fell from grace. But what about the victims? What happened next set a record that still stands today in American justice. But what about the victims? In an unprecedented move, the government distributed over $728 million to those who lost money, the largest single distribution of forfeited assets to victims in Department of Justice history. Officials sorted through more than 13,000 petitions, ultimately approving about 8,500 of them. The resolution came through a complex legal dance. In December 2004, forfeiture proceedings began, and by April 2005, the government had secured a non-prosecution agreement with Adelphia in exchange for the company's payment of over $700 million to compensate victims. In the end, the Rigas family didn't just lose their wealth, they lost their legacy. Their empire was destroyed, their name tarnished, and their reputation forever stained by the choices they made. The Adelphia scandal didn't just bring down one company, it transformed an entire industry. Regulators implemented stricter compliance measures, companies improved their corporate governance practices, and investors became much more skeptical about family-controlled public companies. The telecommunications landscape would never be the same again. From $300 to $3.1 billion to prison cells. The American dream turned nightmare. How much they stole? Over $3.1 billion. How they got caught? Analysts and regulatory investigations uncovered off-balance sheet debt, exposing the massive fraud. John Rigas was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He was released early due to health reasons and passed away in 2021. Watch this next to see the documentary that makes the Rigas family look like amateurs. This has been one of the Downfall Diaries mini-documentaries, and comment and subscribe if you haven't already.